Hello and welcome to the online classes for grade 9 English language. Now, today from our supplementary reader book Moments, we are going to begin a story with the title A House is Not a Home. This is chapter number 8 from our book of Moments. Now, let's first understand the prologue. This story reflects the challenges of being a teenager and the problems of growing up. So how does the author overcome his problems? So in this story, we are going to see the challenges of being a teenager. Now, who is a teenager? A teenager is any child that is between the age of 13 to 19. You see that teen word, it comes in those ages from 13, 14 up till 19. So we call them a teenager. Now, the problems of growing up, the kind of situations we face, the emotional challenges we face, we are going to see these problems and how the author clears his problems, how he tries to live a normal life after that. So let us begin now with our story. A house is not a home. My first year of high school felt awkward. After leaving junior high at the head of my class with all the seniority the upper grade levels could afford me, it felt strange starting over as a freshman. The school was twice as big as my old school, and to make matters worse, my closest friends were sent to a different high school. I felt very isolated. So you see, here we can see that the author's school has been changed. Okay, he has been shifted to another school and he feels awkward. Awkward means uncomfortable. So after leaving the junior school where he was the head of the class, okay, and there he was like a senior student, now he comes to a new school, and the new school he comes to is double the size of his old school. Okay, when we say twice as big, that is something that is double in size. And to make things worse, matters here we're talking about things, the situations, to make them worse, his closest friends, like best friends, they were all in a different high school. So he felt very isolated. Isolated means alone, lonely. I missed my old teachers so much that I would go back and visit them. They would encourage me to get involved in school activities so that I could meet new people. They told me that in time I would adjust and probably end up loving my new school more than I had my old one. They made me promise that when that happened I would still come by and visit them from time to time. I understood the psychology in what they were saying, but I took some comfort in it nonetheless. Now you see, when you change a school, obviously you do miss your old teachers. So likewise, our author was missing the old teachers and he often went to visit them. Okay, he goes to their house, he meets them, he tells them his problems. Now what were they doing? They encouraged him. They tried to make him think positive and tell him that the new activities in school and meeting new people will make him feel better. They also promised that whenever he is not feeling okay or he is feeling isolated, he can come and visit them whenever he likes. So the author understood the psychology. Psychology means the thinking view, the way we think. He understood that yes, when he starts activities and he meets new friends, he meets new people, he will get adjusted soon. One Sunday afternoon, not long after I had started high school, I was sitting at home at our dining room table doing homework. It was a cold and windy fall day, and we had a fire going on in our fireplace. As usual, my red tabby cat was lying on top of all my papers, purring loudly and occasionally swatting at my pen for entertainment's sake. Now, this is an incident that happened on one Sunday afternoon. Okay, he was at home sitting and completing his homework. He was sitting on a table and a chair doing his homework. The weather was cold and it was a windy fall day, and there was a fire going on in the fireplace. So he has a red colored tabby cat. Okay, that's like a lazy big cat, and the cat was there lying on top of his papers. The sound that the cat makes is called a purring sound. Okay, and often what does the cat do for playing? She jumps on to catch his pen. That was what the cat kept doing, that is swatting. She was never far away from me. I had rescued her when she was a kitten, and somehow she knew that I was the one responsible for giving her the good life. So this cat was a small kitten. The small cat is called a kitten. So that was when he rescued her. That is, he saved her from a problem, and then he was the one taking good care of her. My mother kept stoking the fire to keep the house nice and warm. Now you see, stoking the fire means, when there's a fireplace and we have the woods in it burning, so we use a stick to dig the wood so that the fire keeps on and it doesn't finishes. But then something happens. Suddenly, that is suddenly at once, I smelled something strange and then I noticed it. Smoke pouring out in through the seams of the ceiling. The smoke began to fill the room so quickly that we could barely see. Now see what happened suddenly. There was a smell. Okay, when there's a smell and we feel it with our noses. Okay, and it was strange. That is something not normal. And then he saw that there was smoke coming out from the ceiling, that is the roofs. Now the smoke began to fill the room very fast and they could hardly see anything. So what do? Groping our way to the front door, we all ran out into the front yard. By the time we made our way outside, the whole roof was engulfed in flames and it was spreading quickly. I ran to the neighbors to call the fire department while I watched my mother run back into the house. So you see, the moment the room filled with smoke, both the mother and the son, they ran outside to the front of the house. Okay, and by then the whole of the roof of the house was in flames. That means it had caught fire and it was spreading all over the roof very fast. So he goes to the neighbors, to the people staying in front and around of their house, to call the fire department, that's to call the fire brigade. And what happens? His mother runs back into the house. My mother then ran out of the house carrying a small metal box full of important documents. She dropped the case on the lawn and, in a crazed state, ran back into the house. Now, he saw his mother running back into the house, and when she came out, there was a small metallic box in her hand and there were some important documents in it. Now we have a lawn. Lawn is the front part of our house, often where there's grass on it. Okay, so she drops that case there, and again in a crazed state, that is when we don't even think, we just hopelessly run back into the house. I knew what she was after. My father had died when I was young, and I was certain that she was not going to let his pictures and letters go up in the flames. Now you see, the author's father had died when he was a small boy. So he knew his mother was going into the house to bring the pictures and the letters of her husband. They were the only things that she had to remember him. Still I screamed at her, "Mom, no." So you see, obviously when someone is dead, the few things we have of those people, we try to keep them so that they don't lose. But then I shouted and I tried to call her back that, "Mom, no." I was about to run after her when I felt a large hand hold me back. It was a fireman. I had not even noticed that the street had filled with fire trucks. I was trying to free myself from grasps, yelling, "You don't understand, my mother's in there." So you see, when the mother went inside, he also tried to run after her. But then somebody stopped him. Who stopped him? A fireman. That is a person who comes in the fire brigade, who pours water on fires. So the whole street was already filled with fire brigade trucks, and then I didn't told him that my mother is inside there, so let me go inside there. He held on to me while other firefighters ran into the house. He knew that I wasn't acting very logically and that if he were to let go, I would run. He was right. Now you see, obviously it is such a situation where we don't think. I just wanted to run into the house to bring my mother, and the firefighter knew that was wrong. "It's all right, they will get her," he said. He now assures me that, "Don't worry, we will bring your mother out." He wrapped a blanket around me and sat me down in our car. Soon after that, a fireman emerged from our house with my mom in tow. He quickly took her over to the truck and put an oxygen mask on her. I ran over and hugged her. All those times I ever argued with her and hated her vanished at the thought of losing her. So you see, while I was waiting, another fireman went to the house and brought out my mother. My mother was coming behind him, and they quickly took her to the nearby car and they put a mask for her of oxygen so that she can breathe. Okay? Now when we come out from fire, we can hardly breathe. So they gave her this oxygen mask, and I ran near her and I held her. That is a hug. I gave her a hug. And then I felt that whenever I have been fighting with my mother or I hated her, it all finished because I was afraid that I've lost my mother. "She's going to be okay," said the fireman. "She just inhaled a little smoke." And then he ran back to fight the fire while my mother and I sat there dazed. I remember watching my house burn down and thinking that there was nothing I could do about it. So you see, mother and son, They sat down together, they were holding each other, and they were watching their house that was burning down, and there was nothing they could do about it. 5 hours later, the fire was finally out. Our house was almost completely burned down. But then it struck me I had not seen my cat. Where was my cat? Much to my horror, I realized that she was nowhere to be found. Then all at once it hit me. The new school, the fire, my cat. I broke down in tears and cried and cried. I was suffering loss, big time. So you see, until 5 hours the fire was there. They were trying to finish it, pouring water on it. The house was nearly burnt down completely. Okay? Suddenly it comes to his mind that where is his cat? He looked around, he checked out, but she was nowhere. And then he began thinking that about the bad things that are happening in his life. The new school, which he was not happy with, the fire that burns down his house, and the cat that he has lost. So he felt it, that he was suffering, and he began crying. When we say broke down in tears, it means to begin crying. The fireman wouldn't let us go back into the house that night. It was still too dangerous. Dead or alive, I could not imagine leaving without knowing about my cat. So you see, till the night time, they did not allow us to enter the house. But I did not want to go until I knew whether my cat was dead or alive. Regardless, I had to go. We piled into the car with just the clothes on our backs and a few of the fireman's blankets, and made our way to our grandparents' house to spend the night. So the fireman did not let me enter the house. The clothes we were wearing were just what we had, and some blankets we took from the fireman. And after that, we went to our grandparents' house, that is, his mother's parents' house, where they spent the night. The next day, Monday, I went to school. When the fire broke out, I was still wearing the dress I had worn to church that morning, but I had no shoes. So you see, now, of course, when he changed his school, his bag, his uniform, everything was in the house that has burnt. So he was still wearing the dress that he wore to church on Sunday morning, but he was not wearing shoes. I had kicked them off when I was doing my homework. So when he was sitting at home that afternoon doing his homework, he had removed his shoes. When we say kicked them off, it means remove. They became yet another casualty of the fire. So I had to borrow some tennis shoes from my aunt. Why couldn't I just stay at home from school? So you see, he had to borrow shoes from his auntie. He borrowed tennis shoes. Tennis shoes are normally white color shoes. And then he asked his mother, why can't he just stay at home instead of going to school? My mother wouldn't hear of it, but I was totally embarrassed by everything. The clothes I was wearing looked weird. Weird means strange, different, that were not good. I had no books or homework, and my backpack was gone. I had my life in that backpack. So you see, he didn't have another clothes, he didn't have a school uniform, he didn't have books. The homework he was doing also burnt in his house. Backpack means our school bag. The one we put at our back is called a backpack. And the more I tried to fit in, the worse it got. Was I destined to be an outcast and a geek all my life? So you see, this is when he began feeling really isolated, that he doesn't have anything. He was looking so different. He didn't have proper shoes, he didn't have a bag, he didn't have a uniform. I didn't want to grow up, change, or have to handle life if it was going to be this way. I just wanted to curl up and die. So you see, these are some of the problems that teenagers face. The change in his life made him feel very bad, that he even wanted to die. So we shouldn't get so weak with the situations we face. If you're changing school, does not mean life has ended. Try and make new friends, try and enjoy life. I walked around school like a zombie. Now who is a zombie? A zombie is somebody that looks very odd, somebody that looks horror, someone that when they look at you, they will feel afraid. Everything felt surreal. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. All the security I had known from my old school, my friends, my house and my cat had all been ripped away. So you see, the life he had before changing school, that is his old school and all the friends, and then his house and his cat, he was very comfortable with all that. But suddenly it had been ripped away. Ripped means to take away, to snatch away. When we lose something, it's called rip. When I walked through what used to be my house after school that day, I was shocked to see how much damage there was.